Alrighty, what's up, guys? How's it going? I'm making sure here that I'm all set up on my end. Hopefully you guys are the same. Hopefully you can hear me too. Let me know if you can. I'm still getting set up over here, so. Oh, sweet. Doing okay. Tired. Just woke up from a nap with a booger. And by woke up from a nap, I mean I slept on the floor. So there was that. Alrighty. Can hear you loud and clear. Alrighty. So well, if there's something you guys want to start on tonight, we can take a look at. Let me know, and we'll get that typed up so everybody knows what we're covering. We can mess around a little bit. I'll try to pull this up here with a couple of things on Canvas. In terms of mini lessons we can do, got the wheel, which I can pull up for DCUSH. If you're a DCUSH student, we've got our wheel here. I know you guys may not be able to totally see this, but we can spin that thing and take a look at that. Okay, and I've also got Google Drawing open here so that we can do some explanation when you guys answer questions. Okay, so I'm trying to talk a little bit quietly because Booker's still asleep. But other than that, I think we are Gucci. So you guys let me know when you've got a question. I'm gonna get totally set up on my end. Make sure I'm solid here. Yeah, I know, latest subscriber God. When God subscribes to your channel, that moment when it feels good, man. Apparently I must be doing something right if God's subscribing to the channel. Or maybe I'm doing something wrong and you know, they're checking in. I'm not sure. Don't know what that means. I guess it could be good or bad. But no, that was Kyle checking in there. Alright. So, cool. That's all set up. We can set that aside. Awesome. Okay, I won't need that anymore now that I can see it on my screen. Sweet, man. Did also have the pleasure of installing a new coffee level thing that automatically now counts down if I'm not drinking coffee. Or if I haven't started drinking coffee. So it's going to keep counting down from, I think, what is it, like 93 or 94 right now? Yeah, 95. Okay. So there you go. Let's go ahead and refresh a couple of things we need to take care of. I think we need to, let's see, so we're going to do a little inception moment here. So we need to refresh, let's see, make sure that this is good to go. Mini lesson upcoming. So this one will need to we will need to decide what that wants to be. Okay, I think this guy's good to go. Let's see here. Video capture, browser source 2. For DCUSH, could we possibly go over some of the content from Unit 4? Yeah, sure. Unit 4 was the American Revolution, which, yeah, we can totally do that. Is there anything specific you wanted to look at? Or is it just like more like the entire thing? I'd rather you pick something specific so that I know what I can conquer and I know I can point out to people like that this is something very specific that we did. Can I go over Daoism? Sure. Daoism's really interesting. Let me get this updated here real fast. So, latest subscriber, text free type 2. I think it was this one. Yep. Okay, so let's get this updated here. Sweet. Okay, there we go. Cool. Alrighty, so you want to go over Daoism. Alright, yeah, we can totally do that. I'm all down for that, man. Okay, let's make sure it looks good here. Okay, so Daoism. So, when you talk about Daoism, we're going to be looking specifically at China, okay? And what you might remember about this time, if you don't, okay? So, get my marker set up here. There we go. Okay, so what we should have remembered about Daoism is you have to remember the background. Okay, so Daoism. Oh, come on, man. I just set that so that we wouldn't have that issue. Let's do 8. That way you guys can see it. There we go. Okay, so Daoism. Okay, so the thing about Daoism is you need to remember what was called the Warring States period. Okay, and the Warring States period is a very, very, very specific response to basically all the instability that had been going on in China. Okay, so I'm going to flip my screen here so you guys can see this just a little bit better. There we go. Let's transition this. Boom, there you go. Sweet. Okay, so the Warring States period. Okay, now this is not a fun time in China. Okay, you might remember that we had talked about cycles of fragmentation and unity. Okay, this is definitely one of those time periods where that is continuing on, and it's not exactly a happy time in China. Okay, and so really there were 2 philosophies that came out of this. Okay, out of this time period. And again, this is after basically, this is after a couple of early dynasties in China. Okay, and then what happens is people really respond to it in a variety of ways. Okay, one of these philosophies that comes out was called Confucianism. Okay, so Confucianism, format options, make sure, okay, that's all good. Don't know why it keeps going small on me. That's really annoying. Okay, Confucianism. Okay, and then the other one was Daoism. Okay, now these are very, very different, like different answers to the whole like what is the meaning of life kind of questions. All right, and so really, then the question becomes like, what are these 2 answers to life? Like, what does life all mean? What are we all here for? Etc., etc. Okay, and so they come up with a variety of things in terms of what they believe is right or wrong. Okay, Daoism basically says, okay, that the way you fix society is you disconnect from it. Society is the problem in and of itself. Okay, and so Daoism basically says this: you are going to follow what it calls the way. Okay, the Tao, literally. Okay, now the founder of Daoism, okay, his name is a guy named Laozi, Laozi. Okay, now Laozi, basically, he says that the way that you're going to find happiness is that you need to go out and you need to spend time away from society. That society itself is the problem, and you need to literally, basically, disconnect from things. Okay, so we talked about in class that a lot of this has to do then with nature, that people are going to go out and they are going to basically find ways that they can connect with people, or excuse me, connect with not, things that aren't people. Okay, so this also will involve a lot of meditation. Okay, two, a lot of Taoists actually become really just hermits who kind of live out in the middle of nowhere, and they, some become really like very, very interesting painters, other ones become like poets, etc., etc. And some Taoists also kind of take the mystical kind of route, where there's like a lot of mystery and things like that. And actually, eventually this, we think, leads us to alchemy, okay, which gets us ultimately to gunpowder. That was somebody subscribing. Oh, who was that? I didn't even see it. It happened so fast. Whoever it was, thanks. That was really loud. I'll have to go fix that. No worries. That scared me. Oh, I saw it there. Oh, it disappeared. Okay, anyways, so yeah, that gets us to gunpowder. God, that scared the bejesus out of me. Yeah, so there's Daoism. Okay, there's a really, really cool infographic that I have, Picto chart. Let me see if I can pull this up for you. Okay, now what you can do is once I pull this up, you can just pause the video, and you can just look at it, and then you can just jump back in when the stream goes and fixes itself. Okay, but there's a really, and I think I have this linked out in the lesson when I actually did the lesson. Let me see if it's in this one or if it's in my other one. Oof, not sure. I'll have to see. No, Native American population, untitled infographics, so it must be in my other one. Okay, that's fine. I'll get this pulled up for you while I'm answering the next question. So let's see. DCUSH, can we go over the glorious revolution? Yeah, sure. And then we have what are the 7 characteristics of civilization? I'll go ahead and do the 7 characteristics really, really fast, just so we can knock that out quickly. And then the glorious revolution is a little bit more complicated, so I will then jump out to that. Okay, let's take a look here. Yeah, here it is. Okay, sweet. Okay, so I'm gonna like pull this up just so you can actually see it. Okay, let's open it on the web. Okay, and again, you can pause the video and check all these out. Okay. No, I do not want to spin the wheel right now. Okay, so let's see what we got. I'm gonna need to zoom out just a touch. Okay, so seeking the Tao, you follow the simple ways of nature, live in harmony with nature, government's unnatural, the causes of many problems, live during the Warring States period, and pretty much everything that I said right here. Okay, so you can pause this and you can look through these things, and it's also in the lesson that has Daoism as well. Okay, it was a digital textbook day that we did that. Okay, so there you go. Hopefully that's all you need there. All right, I'm gonna delete all this. So the 7 traits of civilizations. Okay, this for you guys needs to be automatic. I don't have another way of saying it. You need to be able to do this without any practice. Okay, CPR, swag. Okay, you need to be able to do examples too. Okay, and so this was the acronym that Cody talked about at the very beginning of the year. And so CPR swag. Okay, C. Okay, stands for social class. You can come up with some examples of these here in a second. Okay, P is public works. Okay, and then R is possibly religion. Okay, not necessarily a true in all cases. Okay, but sometimes, usually. Okay, S was a very, very special word, literally. Specialization. Specialization. Okay, which means people do different jobs. Okay, W is writing. Okay, A is arts, and there's a variety of ways that we define arts. Okay, and then last but not least, okay, is government. Okay, Cody, would you like me to give you some examples of that, or is that enough? Okay, so I'll let you figure that out here. Let's go ahead and I can expand this page if I need to give me some more room to write those out. Okay, so Cody, let me know, and I can come up with some examples. They're pretty easy, and I would think that you would be able to kind of think of some of these just, you know, without me. But examples, please. Okay, sure. So social class. Here's a good one. We've been talking about this lately. World history, kiddos. Feudalism. All right, perfect example of social class. Okay, public works, roads. Okay, anything that people use for free. Okay, buses. I guess it's not for free, but let's say, for instance, that the bus was free. Okay, religion. There's 1,000 examples we could do of this. Christianity, since we've been talking about that recently in class. Okay, specialization. Let's just teacher. Somebody doing a very specific job, right? Writing. Let's go real far back. Cuneiform. I have to always spell that correctly, right? Which is the wedge-shaped writing. You might remember it. It kind of looks like this, and then it's got like little slashes in it. It's in Sumeria. Okay. Arts. Poetry. Okay. And then government. Let's just pick on the Greeks. Democracy. Okay. So there you go. Now again, when we call something a civilization, that is inherently fraught with a lot of bias. Okay, we have to be very careful about when we say that somebody is a civilization and somebody isn't. Okay, because we're often making a comparison to ourselves. Alrighty, and again, these aren't also like always true, right? So like, for instance, the Mongols really did not have public works. They're not very good at that. They're very good at conquering other people, but we could definitely say they're a civilization. Okay? Does that kind of make sense? My coffee level's getting low. One second. Okay, so hopefully that takes care of that. Awesome. Hopefully that was helpful. Okay. Man, there's so many questions here. Okay, I'm going to try to keep as best I can. Okay? So Lillian said, "You're welcome, Cody. No worries, brah. Also, for DCUSH, can we go over the Glorious Revolution?" Okay, was there something before that? Did I miss? I feel like I've had like DCUSH questions that I can't keep up with. Go over the content before. The Glorious Revolution. Okay. Yeah, that was the last one. Oh, man. Lots of questions here. All right, got to put my coffee level back at 100%. That was getting a little low for me. Okay, here we go. So, what do we got next? We said Glorious Revolution. Sure. I'm actually going to pull up the thing here for this, okay? I don't remember what the title of this lesson was, so we will need to go actually dig it up out of slides. Okay, Glorious Revolution. I saw somebody asked there about the Treaty of Ghent. If I recall, I don't believe that was something that was a big emphasis in class, but we'll come back to that specific question later. Okay, Maniacal Mercantilism and Gruesome Glorious Revolutions, or Gloriously Gruesome Revolutions. Alrighty, what do we got? Mercantilism, talked about the poster that you guys made. Man, that feels like forever ago. It's already 7:30. Yikes. I know I got a bit of a late start, but whew. All right, here we go. Gruesome Glorious Revolution. Okay, so when we were talking about this one, okay, we were in the middle of all the colonies now, all 13 colonies, or most of the 13 colonies being set up, okay? And we're at a time period where the 7 Years' War, okay, or the French and Indian War has not yet happened. Okay, we're still a few years back from that. But when we talk about the Glorious Revolution, it's basically, this is a really, really important lesson for understanding how closely the colonies are linked with Britain overseas. And so what happens in Britain really does affect the colonies, and what happens in the colonies really affects Britain. And this is a really, really great way to see this. Okay, and that's why our question here: how does overseas events affect people? That's why this question was what it was. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump this into presentation mode so you guys can see. And I'm going to go ahead and flip my desktop so you guys can see this a little bit better. Desktop, small face, transition. Boop. Okay, not feudalism. Nope. Down says this, won't need that for a while. And I think, yep, there we go. Okay, so, okay, the Glorious Revolution. Okay, now, if you do not remember what the English Civil War was, actually, world history kids, we will look at this here next semester, okay? The English Civil War is a super important thing that happens, okay? And there's actually a link in this DCUSH Kids. There's a button right here that can take you to that mini lesson and can explain it to you, okay? So basically, here's the background, right? In Britain, there's a specific king that takes over. His name is James II, okay? As in like King James, like LeBron, okay? Now, the big deal here, okay, that really to sum up James II, is that he, like his dad, James I, wants to be an absolute monarch. Okay, now, for James I, that does not turn out so well, okay, which is really, really nasty. He gets beheaded and a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, his son, okay, James II, what does this have to do with colonies? Well, okay, how colonies have been run before this point, okay, is that they had been run by essentially charters, right? So we had talked about in mercantilism that the idea is that you have state-sponsored capitalism, that are businesses who are basically running the colonies on behalf of the crown. Okay, now again, what James wants to do is he's going to take a more direct influence in this, and it's going to be, I guess, a really good example of the opposite of salutary neglect taking place during salutary neglect. And that's why it was such like a surprising and yet, I guess in some ways, unsurprising that it didn't work. Okay, so what he does is he takes all the charters for pretty much all the New England colonies, so Massachusetts Bay, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Plymouth, New Jersey, and he combines it into a single massive super colony called the Dominion of New England. Okay, so today, basically, what this would look like, and you can see this here on this map, is that we would lose like 6 states, except for Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. Those would stay, but then all of those states in the green there would be created into this massive, like, Transformer super colony thing, okay, which would be in, like, a total, like, Michael Bay film or something like that, okay? Now, as you can imagine, this is not very popular. So he goes on to then make a bunch of other steps. All legislatures in the Dominion of New England is gone. Town meetings are gone. They start pushing at least people to worship in the Anglican Church, which, as if you remember, the Puritans kind of hated that thing. So that's not very popular. And there's also a whole bunch of like land fees and taxes and stuff that goes into that too. So not a popular thing. Okay, and so how the colonists respond, Well, we'll get to that here in a second, because you have to understand what happens in England, okay? And what happened at this time was that James II, his wife gave birth to a son, okay? Now, James II, his wife was a Catholic, okay? Now, this is another side story, okay? But England and Catholicism had like probably the greatest Taylor Swift breakup story of all time. They were never ever getting back together. At least that's, huh? Yes, that was, as my wife does remind me, that was King Henry VIII. Thank you, dear. Okay, so the Parliament basically freaks out because they're like, oh my God, we're going to go back to having Catholics in charge, and this is going to be the end of the world. Okay, and so what they do is they basically throw James into exile, and they put his essentially related. I can't remember if it's his. I think it's his uncle. I think it's his uncle. His name is William of Orange. Okay, and then William of Orange was married to James's daughter. Okay, her name was Mary, and so William and Mary of Orange take over. Okay. And that event is called the Glorious Revolution, okay, simply because nobody died, okay? And so basically what happens from that point is that all the things that James was trying to do in the colonies goes away, okay? Revolts break up. The governor of that colony, who was doing some of those things for King James II, his name was Sir Edmund Andros, he gets thrown back to England, okay? But why this is a big deal, okay, is that it triggers a whole bunch of things that are going to become very consequential down the line. So the Dominion of New England gets broken up, okay? It goes back to all the separate colonies that we know today. But there's some big things that do happen. Puritans no longer are in charge of Massachusetts Bay. They'll never get that back, okay? Boston is made into a royal colony. It's taken under the protection of the crown. Maryland actually flips its purpose, because it was originally set up by Lord Calvert, Lord Baltimore, to be a Catholic refuge, and then it becomes now an Anglican colony. But here's the big thing, and we can kind of see this if we go here back to this map. When colonists, and you can see here there's these little fires that are breaking out, it says like political revolts, okay? You can see these little things that kind of breaking out, and this is a really good example that we have of the colonists becoming, I don't want to say necessarily concerned, but even early on, again, we're about 70 years out from really the American Revolution starting to become, you know, even really getting formally set up. It's a good example that we have of the colonies wanting to be run locally and to be done so not like as a dictator. Okay, so that's really the big thing of the Glorious Revolution. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. Sweet. So let me know if that helped. Again, I apologize for that being a little bit lengthy, but that is certainly a complicated and although really important thing that happens. Okay, I'm actually gonna have to go back and see, because there are people, you guys have been asking so many questions and wanting things. Let's see. Glorious Revolution. The lesson I was looking at was 915, Absurd American Aftermath, the Post-Revolution, but also maybe a little summary of what else happened in that time period. Sure. Okay, Absurd American Aftermath, Post-Revolution. Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay. Alright, let's see what we got here. That helped, thank you so much. Oh yeah, totes. Totes my goats, man. Alright, so Absurd American Aftermath. Okay, it's not, normally I get these things to pop up for me. Let's go ahead and jump back out here. Oh man, it is so cold outside right now. I was out there like right before we started this stream, and my goodness, it is cold. It is definitely winter. It's supposed to be like super cold tomorrow, so stay bundled up, kiddies. Wear your coats is what I recommend. The coat is a good thing. Coffee's running low. Numbers continue to keep decreasing. Okay, here's what we got. Oh yeah, totally remember this. Okay. So one of the things that we had talked about, you guys took a quiz this day, and then we jumped into a lesson. And let me make sure that we have Federalist and Anti-Federalist in here later. Yeah, we do. Okay, cool. So yeah, I think I can knock this one out pretty quickly. So really, once the American Revolution happens, this is the question of like, okay, so now what? Like, what was this all for? Like, why did we do this? Like, and what's going to be our next steps here? And that's why I had as the subtitle of this, Establishing Democracy and Defining Limits, because the question is like, how much democracy is the right amount? Like, what kind of democracy are we going to set up? Is it going to be like World History Kids? Is it going to be like the Greeks, where it's democracy in name, but then totally something different? Is it going to be for, you know, is it going to be Jacksonian democracy, DCUSH Kids, where you open it up to lots of people? There's really these questions, and the whole question really here is like, what is it going to mean to be an American? Like, what is that word going to entail? Like, and they're basically like writing this from scratch, right? And so that's kind of what the questions were looking like. And so here, okay, let's actually. So you can see some of the questions that we're looking at. Who is it fought for? How should the government be designed? What does it mean to be an American? These kind of like big questions. Alrighty. So I like how all my formatting is off. That's awesome. That makes me so happy. Okay. The first attempt that was made, okay, was the Articles of Confederation. Okay. And so the Articles, when they, and we're speaking here from a government standpoint, okay, was the first attempt to make an American government. Okay. If you remember how it works, there's a Congress of 13 members. Okay. There's no, in terms of a formal, okay, setup from the federal point of view, there's no judicial and no executive branch. Okay. There kind of were some other court systems, but doesn't matter. It's too complicated and it's a mess. You can actually look up the government like structure of the Articles of Confederation, and it doesn't make any sense at all. Okay. Laws required 3/4 of all the colonies to approve. Okay, so that's 5. Okay, so 4 would have been 1/4. Okay, so you would have had to taken. Oh gosh, don't ever do math on LiveStream. I think this is the lesson we're learning here. Let's see, advanced math. Somebody look up what 3/4 of 13 is, and put it in the comments below. I hate math. Okay, I think I broke like the cardinal sin of streaming, which is don't do math on live stream. Anyways, okay, changes in the articles require all 13. What? 3.5? Is that? It's
between 3 and 4.
My wife teaches 2nd and 3rd grade, and this is why we keep her around. Don't you have like a calculator on your phone over there? Okay. Anyways, changes in the articles, you have to have a unanimous vote, all 13. Okay, so if the articles are broken, they're really hard to fix. And if you can imagine, right after the Revolution, this blue bullet point on the bottom makes sense. No ability to tax states or individuals. Like 9.75 is 3/4. Okay, 9.75. So you would have to have, I guess we can say 9 or 10 colonies. 10 colonies to agree to pass a law. And that's a lot, if you think about it. But the whole idea here is that this was, after the American Revolution, Americans are super concerned about a concentration of power at the federal level. Okay? And so they leave this government very, very weak in terms of national power. Okay? So no ability to tax, and really the states are supreme. Okay? And so this is really the problems here that we're talking about, right? There's no president, money's power, and you can't tax. That's a huge issue. Okay? But we did say the one silver lining of the articles was the Northwest Ordinance. Okay, in terms of like it being a big deal that gets passed on. Okay, well, and then we get the Dred Scott decision that rips that into shreds. Okay, but it's the Northwest Ordinance. Okay, and this was the way that future states could join the Union. Okay, if you remember, you have to have a certain number of people move into an area, okay, a territory, and then that territory can apply to become a state. Okay, and the other big thing that this did, the Northwest Ordinance, is it allowed, or should I say it disallowed slavery in a whole bunch of territories. Okay, and these right here: Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, and Wisconsin. Wisconsin. Okay? And so these states, it sets up the method, even for us to join the Union, but it also prevents slavery from being there until the Dred Scott decision, when Roger Taney says, like, no, let's slavery everywhere. Yeah, that was a good moment. Okay, when does it break down? Basically the articles, everybody realizes there's a problem when Shays' Rebellion happens. Okay, this was a rebellion by a bunch of farmers. Okay, but again, there's no national military. So the articles look really, really weak when this wants to be crushed. Basically, the state of Massachusetts has to come together and deal with it themselves. Okay, it's a bunch of farmers who are upset about taxes and debts left over from the Revolution. Okay, but basically, there's no national force that comes along and crushes this, and so it makes it very, very clear that the articles they need revised. Okay, and basically what this would equivalent be doing today is like saying like the U.S. Constitution today is broken and we're going to ditch it and completely start over again. And that's what they do. It's the Constitutional Convention. Okay, and there was some debate at the time whether they just wanted to revise the articles or whether they wanted to actually, go and, just like completely change them or just make small edits, and they decide eventually that they're just going to completely get rid of the articles. Okay, and mostly who is present in this are just really a group of very, very elite Americans. We call them today the Founding Fathers, and also I think rightly so the Founding Mothers, or there were definitely some women who had influence here. Okay, but we basically get two plans for how the country, at least these people, want this new government to be, and that was the New Jersey plan and the Virginia plan. Okay, and eventually there's a compromise worked out called the Great Compromise. Okay, and you can see it right here. All right, so the New Jersey plan, this is an Article of Confederation that basically just takes it, throws on a national executive, and really it doesn't really solve the issue. Okay, the Virginia plan, okay, is very, very different, and that was the one proposed by Madison and a few others, and it gets combined. Okay, and really the big difference between these two is who's going to have more power in certain houses. Okay, so the New Jersey plan only has a single house legislature, and each state would get an equal number of representatives. Okay, so basically, again, the articles. And then the Virginia plan, on the other hand, says that the amount of people that you get, okay, this is all during my moving period, so I'm lost on that. Oh, okay. The Virginia plan was based on your state's population, was how many representatives you got. Okay. Now, eventually what they do is they combine the two. So today, the Senate has an equal number of representatives for each state for a total of 50, okay, until we get more states, if that ever happens. Okay. And then the House, you get as many representatives depending on what the population of your state is. Okay. So they combine the two, and that's what we get. Now, when the Constitution is hammered out, there's obviously some pretty stringent disagreement. So we have two groups that emerge. We call them Federalists and Anti-Federalists. Okay, so supporters of the Constitution and of this big, new, strong, there's going to be now a big, strong national government that is going to be in charge of the states. We know them today as Federalists. Okay, some of these guys are very, very famous. Washington, Hamilton, the same guy from the musical, and Madison at first. Okay, and when you think Federalists, you need to think strong national power, okay, meaning strong federal power. Okay, opponents of it and those who favor state power are known as anti-federalists. Okay, so this is people like Jefferson, Patrick Henry, and later Madison will switch to become one of these. Okay, the thought for them is that concentrated power is a threat to liberty. Okay, so basically big government actually oppresses people is basically the idea. Okay. No, you're not late. We're just jumping into the middle of things, bruh. When the Constitution gets ratified, okay, there's a lot of negotiation that goes into it between these two groups. Okay, there's a bunch of very ugly stuff in there, like the 3/5 compromise, which helps Southern states want to join. Okay, because they get more representation, saying that a slave is 3/5 of a person when votes counted. Okay, yeah, it's definitely a nasty hammering out process. Okay, so for example, here's another one. They basically decide that the slave trade will be cut off, okay, after a certain period of time in terms of like allowing slaves to come in from other places. There's a whole bunch of negotiations that happen, and that's how we end up with the Constitution we have. Okay, so there you go. That was our absurd American aftermath lesson. Man, I feel like I'm super far behind. Let's go. I'm gonna go jump onto YouTube and see what the comments are, because I actually have to go way far back. Vielen Dank for covering that. You're welcome. Bitte. Look at you using your German. Vielen Dank. Many thanks. Okay, let's see here. Okay, we did that one. Okay, a little summary of what else happened during that time period. The other thing I would tell you is besides looking at that, you want to look at the early presidents, okay, and stuff that went on for them. And then I think maybe the War of 1812 would also be kind of important, to look at. So focus on those things is kind of what I would tell you. Mini lesson about the majestic motherhood and redonkulous revivals, gender roles, and the Second Great Awakening. I covered the Second Great Awakening a little bit yesterday. I can do more specifics on it today. That's fine. Okay. Also, world history kids, if you have questions, get them in. Like, don't let DCUSH kids run you over. You guys are important too. New subscriber. Oh, that was Ann. Oh, thanks for subscribing, Ann. You scared the bejesus out of me. Okay. So let's see here. We are almost at an hour. That's so crazy fast, man. Okay, so we were doing majestic motherhood. Sorry, I'm reading some of your guys' things. Anyway, could we also go over Shays' Rebellion? Yeah, actually, I just did. If you go back just a little bit, I actually did that. Like, it was during the whole absurd American aftermath. That's right when the Articles of Confederation are being put in place, and it makes them look really, really weak. Okay, so you can actually rewind the stream and go watch it and then catch back up. Only 44 minutes, Gavin. Is that Gavin joining in late? Okay, so let's see what we got here. Gender roles. Oh, yeah. So we were talking about the sinful sex and how that starts to change. Okay, changing gender roles for men and women. Okay, now, this one is, I guess, a good one to also review what the patriarchal household economy was. Okay, so in our early colonies, this is how things happen. And my college professor would be so happy for me actually teaching this to you guys, because it's not something that's really brought up that often, and it's really, really important. So the patriarchal household economy, what was it? It's basically how things got done. Okay, society's built on this idea that of a patriarchy, that the man is in charge of the house, and that the household economy, that things are made out of the home, that the home is the unit of production. Okay, the idea is that your family is self-sufficient. Okay, you may buy a little bit of stuff on credit. You might sell a few things in like a local area. Okay, but it's very, very local is kind of the big theme here. Okay, so basically today, like your hipsters are basically now trying to, in some ways, to be more kind of like going this way in terms of like being self-sufficient. You know, spinning all your own clothing and wearing man buns and whatever else. Okay, but that's basically what the patriarchal household economy is. Okay, the idea is that there's more rough gender equality actually in terms of the workload. Okay, yes, the man is the head of the family unit, but they're sharing responsibility on the homestead. Okay, so it's very, very common, for instance, like in the South, that men and women would do, for example, like women would butcher the hogs and take care of that just like men would. Okay, so what we said changed then was two things. Okay, so we're after the American Revolution here, and the idea is we're going to start to see before the 1800s, man buns back in the 1700s. Hey man, you don't know, dude. Man buns were. Did Hamilton have a man bun in the play? Yeah. Well,
But it was in the back.
it was in the back.
He didn't wear it on top.
He didn't wear it on top. Oh, okay. My wife's informing me that he had a man butt, but that was in the 1770s. So almost. Okay. They did wear wigs though, powdered wigs. So that was kind of an interesting thing. Anyways, so before 1800, okay, what people often misunderstand or forget is that it's the exact opposite of society today, that women then were thought as the morally weaker sex and as the temptresses in society, meaning women were the ones who were immoral, up to no good, okay, in terms of sexuality, things like that. And now this goes all the way back to what Protestant theology and then also preachers and people would cite all the time, which is that women were, for example, responsible for tempting Adam to eat the forbidden fruit in the Bible. Okay, and so that what had been true before was that men were thought of as the moral, like, upstanders in society. Okay, and now this changes, and this is a really important point, I guess. Okay, so when we're talking about Republican motherhood, this is a big change in terms of how people think about themselves. Okay, in terms of, well, not about themselves, but also other people, and what is sin, or who is the sinful sex. Okay, this happens roughly over about a 30, I'd say maybe 50-year period. It takes a really long time. So, and then it shifts to how we're familiar with it today, where men are the ones who get involved in dirty, are thought as the ones who are allowed to be sexual, who do. A really, really good example here, I guess, would be totally all the sex scandals that have happened in the 3rd century, evidenced by terracotta warriors. That's hilarious. That is true. I didn't even think about that. Good job, Shi Huangdi. Starting man buns and building the Great Wall. Look at you. So this is a really good example where even today we've had all these sex scandals, all the way from Roy Moore in Alabama to Bill Clinton to people in the media, Matt Lauer on the Today Show, where they are thought as, of course you're only here to see my good-looking face. I mean, you're not here to see my bad-looking face. It's not even possible. Okay, where they are thought as being the ones who are basically like sexual deviants. Okay, and what then happens is that women become the upholders of society. Okay, and this is called Republican motherhood, that they're the ones who are going to teach their kids right and wrong. The home is going to become this refuge from the nasty outside world. Okay, and this starts the idea, and this is the big idea, like the big basically thing of this, called separate spheres, where the home is going to become the lady's place to dominate and to teach and to create a safe, learning, upstanding environment, and then men are going to be responsible, because they are the sinful sex, for participating in the dirty outside world of society. Okay. Now again, I'm not saying necessarily like any ways I agree with this, but this is the change that happens. Okay. And so, man, what is going on with the formatting? This is blowing my mind. I'm gonna have to fix this, because this is driving me crazy. You guys should remember the terracotta warriors. We looked at them in world history. I couldn't tell if that was a world history student, but okay, let's look here. So the Second Great Awakening. I'm actually going to go ahead and dig in here. Okay, and I'm just going to really sum up this very, very quickly. Okay, the Second Great Awakening. Basically, the idea that predestination is not destiny. That the actions you do affect if you get saved. Okay, and that there were just religious revivals all from about a 50-year period that people go and really, really participate in things. Okay, and so these, basically, if you've heard of evangelicals today, that's where this gets its start. Okay, it happens up in the north. It affects everything. There, people now feel a responsibility Now, whether or not you say that's selfish, or whether or not you say that they genuinely believed in it, and many of them do, okay, it's everything from temperance to asylum reform for the mentally insane and the mentally ill, women's rights, education, abolition, the idea that what I do in my life matters. It's going to affect if I get saved. Okay, and there's a bunch of really good examples of this that we talked about. So, for example, like trying to get Americans off of alcohol. Okay, because as you can see here, the average American drank over the age of 15 and in 1 year drank 34 gallons of beer and cider alone. Okay, that's a year, right? 5 gallons of distilled spirits and 1 gallon of wine, right? And so yeah, there's a ton of stuff in here. Women's rights, the idea that, you know, even going back and eventually saying that slavery is wrong, this idea that I can morally change society, that is the Second Great Awakening. Okay, or that I should. It's going to affect my salvation. Okay, what do we got? Can we go over mainly the Embargo Act, Treaty of Ghent, and the Hartford Convention? Sure. Golden Chase Rebellion. Okay, I think I got that one. And then we just had a man-bun discussion, which I'm totally down for having. My hair was almost long enough I could have done that. Then I cut it 5 inches off. My wife was happy when I did that. You weren't a fan of it. She rolled her eyes. I would show you guys Booker right now, but he's asleep. Oh man, coffee level's getting dangerously low. Ooh, feels bad, man. Let's see, what do we got next? Sorry guys, I'm reading through your stuff and trying to make sure I catch up here. So characteristics, got it. Examples, please. Trying to make sure I hear absolutely everybody. I know we're kind of getting close to an hour, but if there's still people on here, like I will totally keep going. We're having gallons. I'm 17. Had little more than a sip yet. I made just as many questionable decisions. Yeah, welcome to being a teenager. You will continue to make questionable decisions, and that doesn't really ever stop. Let's see. What was the 925 lesson? I don't know what that was. I'm gonna have to go look, unless you want to give me the title. Hi, Jamie. Hi, big dog. You excited by me talking? This is Jamie, guys. This is my dog, if you haven't met him. Of course you haven't met him, but you haven't seen him. Hi, buddy. Yes, your breath is very stinky. Was that 925 DCUSH, or was that... it must have been DCUSH, because you were asking about... I have no idea what unit that is. I'm just going to guess. Hi, buddy. How you doing? How you doing? How you been? Huh? You gonna help me with this? You gonna help learn them? You gonna help learn them good? Crazy Cajun country. Go for some Cajun right now. Sounds good. Yeah, I got it. Thanks, man. Hi, buddy. Yes, you're fluffy. Let's see. Oh, okay. Good Lord. What do you need? Slap me in the face. Okay, so Louisiana Purchase. Talked about that, yeah? The United States getting more territory. The significance is doubles the size of the U.S. There we go. Major causes and consequences of 1812. Let's do that real fast. Okay. Shawnee Confederacy. Okay, so we said there were 3 things that caused the War of 1812 to break out. Louisiana Purchase. Okay, basically because it puts Americans in conflict with the Shawnee Confederacy or Western Confederacy, and then also the British. Okay, so that was the first one, and my formatting again is garbage. Man, this is so frustrating. I'll have to go back and fix this one. Then there was the Western Confederacy itself. Okay, that starts some problems. Okay, again, its theme was a pan-Amerindian movement that wants to return to native ways. Okay, and the British are using them again. They're using them as a way to check Americans from expanding. Okay, expanding westward. And then the last one was Napoleon. Okay, so we talked about impressing sailors, which was not going and tap dancing in front of them, and doing jazz hands. Impressing is forcing them into service. Okay, and so France and Britain had both done this, and why this becomes significant is then because basically from all these things, okay, it happens to about 8,000 Americans, so roughly about 2 to 3 times the amount of people killed in 9/11 are kidnapped into forced to and be part of the British or French military. Feels bad, man. And basically what Jefferson does as a result of this is he puts in what's called the Embargo Act, and he says, like, you know what, France and Britain, fine, we won't trade at all. See how that goes. And it actually does not go well at all. Okay, it basically completely tanks the economy because trade is really, really important. Okay, and Americans are super dependent on trade with both Britain and France. And if you all of a sudden cut that off, like, that hurts a lot of people. The British really doesn't hurt them that bad. They've got lots of other European countries they can trade with. And for the French, it doesn't really affect them either. Okay, and so when the War of 1812 happens, okay, there's certain people when this war breaks out that are not very supportive of it, and simply because it was not in their interest to be. They did not want to go to war with Britain over this, even though the British were checking Americans from expanding westward. For instance, Federalists. Okay, and you can actually see them here on the map. They're the yellow. Okay, those are who voted against war. They did not want to go to war against Britain because Federalists found they liked that relationship with Britain, and also they depended on that trade. Okay, and so as it says there, New England and Middle Atlantic Federalists voted against the war, but it still happens. Okay, and there's a video here that kind of talked about some of the happenings. And basically, here's what you need to know about the War of 1812. There's nothing that really changes, okay, in terms of land territory. Okay, so that's what the Treaty of Ghent was, which is why we didn't really focus on it too much, because basically it just says, okay, let's stop fighting, fine. Okay, the bigger deal, I would argue, that comes out of it is that Tecumseh and his Western Confederacy falls apart. And then secondly, and probably arguably I would say just as important, is that the Federalist Party dies. Okay, and that is because right at the end of the war, okay, they make a couple of mistakes, and mostly it's not their fault, it's just bad timing. Okay, they don't want to participate in the war, and then what essentially happens is that right at the end of the war, okay, they come together at this meeting in New England called the Hartford Convention. And basically you can see it's like a little picture of it up there. And basically what they do is they say, like, okay, we need to fix things because this war should not have happened. There were too many bad decisions made. The United States needs to fix itself. Okay, and now, but the problem is the timing is awful because they look super bad when Andrew Jackson wins after the war is technically over at New Orleans, and it makes them seem really unpatriotic. It's like the guy who is like at the 4th of July with an America Sucks t-shirt. It's kind of, it doesn't like feel right, I guess, is kind of the idea. So the ideas that we're proposing make a lot of sense. Get rid of the 3/5 clause, which is, again, a pretty horrible thing. The embargo, that Congress should have, it should take 2/3 of Congress to declare war because that's a pretty serious thing. But again, all these suggestions at the time make them look like they're just kind of being like spoil sports, and it makes them seem very, very out of touch. And so the Federalist Party falls apart. Okay? Does that kind of make sense? Yeah, can you relax, Jamie? I'll walk you after this, okay? I promise. So there you go, man. Okay, and then we talked Honor and Slavery Project. That was an extension case study that we didn't do, but it's really, really cool. You'll learn more about Native Americans. So there we go. Okay. What do we got? Shays Rebellion, I got that. The acts on the DCUSH lesson for 11-9, and possible any recommendations to remember them easier. Yeah, let me show you how I do it. Okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about the American Revolution, yes? Is that correct? And you still think it's wild that South Carolina almost left the Union before the actual Civil War would have been super bad for them. Yeah, it wasn't exactly a good moment, but they definitely, when the time comes, they take their advantage when the Civil War occurs. They're like, yep, let's go. And they really don't look back until Sherman shows up and burns everything down to the ground. They're like, ooh, that went poorly. Let me, so here's how basically I memorize these things, okay? So, okay, I do them like with an acronym in my head. It's just how it works for me, okay? I basically, so when I think of all these acts and when I'm doing studying, I almost make up this like made up story in my mind of these acts, and this is what I do for a lot of history, and this really just helps me remember kind of like how things flow back and forth, okay? And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, and I'll kind of talk you through it, all right? So, what I know it starts off with is an S, okay? And I know that it is the Sugar Act, okay? Now, you can go in and look what the Sugar Act is here, but I'm going to focus on what this basically is, okay? Now, when I think Sugar Act, I think basically this is the start of actually running your empire. Okay, and you can see why I kind of mean that if you go back and look at the Sugar Act. So the second thing then, okay, is another S, which comes right after that. Okay, and that is the Stamp Act. Okay, again, another S. It helps me keep it in mind. Now this one, okay, meets with a lot more resistance. And that's when I start to think here, the word of resistance. Okay, hi, Call. You want to say hi too? Say hi, buddy. Say hi. Yeah, are you fuzzy? Okay, and so from that point on, okay, I think Stamp Act Congress. I think of what the Stamp Act actually taxed, right? Okay, all these things. Okay, and again, from this point on, I think resistance. And so then I think repealed. Hi, buddy. Okay, I'll see you later, okay? So I think repealed, and then QRST. Okay, so I'm just going off the alphabet here. This is how I remember them, is the Townshend Act. Okay, and if you remember, this is essentially a tax on everything. Okay, now again, there's even more resistance to this. Okay, so again, kind of going, you're going to see that the resistance thing just kind of picks up from the Stamp Act and on. Okay, this is also then repeats and it gets repealed. Okay, so again, I'm just kind of like making this story up in my mind, and this is just a really easy way for me to remember it. Okay, again, like the story that you make up, and again, this is just one strategy. It's yours, man. So like, if you've got something like a technique that works better for you in terms of remembering, I would say use that. Don't feel like you have to study the exact way that I study, because your brain is not the same as my brain, and that's totally fine. Okay, so repealed. Okay, and then they leave the tax on tea. Oh, I need to fix my pen. Okay, they leave the tax on tea. Okay, so they leave the tax on tea. Okay, and from this point on, we kind of get this, like, when I think leave, I just kind of think that like things are kind of left alone for a while. There's kind of a period here where there's not a lot going on. Okay, and then we finally get the Tea Act. Okay, and that is the one where they try to bypass all the merchants. There's a whole lot more resistance here, which again kind of goes back to this theme, okay, that we were talking about up here. All right, and then when I think Tea Act, I know the next thing that has to happen is the Boston Tea Party. Okay, so I'm actually going to keep expanding this drawing here if I can do that, if Google will let me. Yeah, it will. It's going to keep chalking this down and give myself some more space. Okay, so I think Boston Tea Party. Because again, it's so closely related to tea, just in the name, that it should be easily rememberable. Okay, and from this point on, I'm starting, like, even from here, like, I guess this line on, or really even like up here. What I remember from this point on, this line, is that it's almost like a ping pong effect. Like the colonies are doing something, and in response, Britain does something, and then the colonies do something, and then the British do something. And this kind of also helps you remember like what happens kind of next in terms of everything. Okay, the only exception to that is where they leave the tax on tea, and then later they pass the Tea Act. Okay, so Boston Tea Party, and then from that we get the coercive acts. Okay, the last thing that happened, and this is the last bit I'll say on it. I need to actually zoom out even more. I'll zoom back in, don't worry. Okay, the last thing that happens is from this, there's this declaration. Okay, rights and grievances, and I'll take us up right to the American Revolution starting here. So, Declaration of Rights and Grievances. And this is the one where the colonies say like, hey, yeah, you're not being very nice, so like please stop, but also like we're gonna cut off all trade with you. And that's when we get war. Okay? So again, like the narrative that I just talked through there, like that, I think I've done everything now. I think. Have I completely caught up? Did I get to everybody's? Video output low. Okay, so hey, if you guys are struggling to hear me, I know that the stream is being weird. I'll put something in here. Hey, if the stream is not connecting, it's an issue on my end. I think we're about done though. Any more questions? Yeah, because YouTube is telling me that I was having a bit of connection issues. You guys got anything more for me? Yeah, YouTube says it's struggling. If I had a PC, I could probably do this with a lot more power. And we would, oh, cutie. And that we would not have so many as slow uploading issues, but I think we're good. I know you guys may not be able to hear me, but so let's go ahead. I'm gonna pause and then restart it. So that cleared things up for me. Cool. Okay, so you guys are still there. Some of you still are. Excellent. Again, I can't tell if my computer's being silly or if it's just other things are going on. Okay, so I think I may have dropped most of you guys, or it fixed something for me. So I'm having some tech issues on my end, but I think we're all good. It says stream health is up 100%, but not really seeing that. Yeah, I'm seeing problems over here with my OBS. See you guys tomorrow then. Have an awesome night. Any Any last questions before I log off? Yeah, that's annoying. 813. Yeah, it was just like video output low, no active stream. What is going on? Silly thing. Okay, cool. So if you guys don't have any questions, again, I can't see because my technology over here is failing me. I'll see you guys tomorrow then. Really, really productive one. You guys had a ton of questions, which is really, really good. Okay. What I'll do again is I'll link the comments down below so you guys can jump to whatever you need to if you want to go back and rewatch it. So other than that, I'll see you guys later. Okay. Yeah. Peace.